At 76, I thought my days of fighting battles were behind me. But then I saw my daughter-in-law slip something into my drink, smiling like I wouldn't notice. She thought I was too old, too blind, too weak to see. But she was wrong. I switched glasses, and in that moment, her world began to unravel. My name is Edward Collins. I'm 76 years old, widower of 10 years, and I've lived most of those years quietly in the same house Margaret and I bought when we were young. Life had slowed for me, mornings with coffee on the porch, afternoons reading the paper, and evenings remembering a time when my home was filled with laughter. But peace is fragile. And mine was shattered the day I noticed something was wrong with my daughter-in-law, Melissa. Melissa had always been polite, at least on the surface. She'd call me Dad at family gatherings, serve me a slice of pie, even kiss my cheek hello. But there was something beneath her smile, something sharp. I could feel it. My son, Daniel, didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. He'd married Melissa after a whirlwind romance, and from the moment she stepped into his life, she made sure she had control of it. Their house, their finances, even their circle of friends. It all revolved around her. I tried to ignore the unease, telling myself it was just my imagination. But one evening proved otherwise. It was Sunday dinner at Daniel and Melissa's home. They insisted I come every week, though I often wondered if it was duty more than love that made them invite me. Melissa cooked her usual roast chicken, her smile never faltering as she moved around the table. Daniel chatted about work. The kids argued over who got the biggest slice of pie, and for a moment, it felt almost normal. Then, as Melissa poured the wine, I saw it. Her hand hovered just a moment too long over my glass. A quick glance around the table to see if anyone was watching, and then something slipped into the liquid, small and dissolving fast. My chest tightened, my eyes narrowed. She set the glass down in front of me, her smile wide and sweet. "Here you go, Dad." I stared at the ruby-red liquid, my mind racing. Was it my imagination? A trick of the light? Or was this the proof of everything I had feared? I glanced up. Melissa's eyes locked on mine for just a second too long, then darted away. That was all I needed. I smiled faintly, lifting the glass as if to drink. At the last second, I set it down and, with a slight shuffle, swapped it with hers. Melissa blinked, surprise flashing across her face before she quickly masked it. "Is something wrong, Dad?" Daniel asked, oblivious. "No, son," I said calmly. "Just thought Melissa should have the first taste. She deserves it after all this hard work cooking." Melissa froze. Her hand trembled slightly as she lifted the glass, her smile now brittle, her skin pale. She hesitated long enough for Daniel to frown. "Go on, honey," he said lightly. "Drink. It's just wine." Her lips pressed in, and she took the smallest sip I'd ever seen. She set the glass down quickly, her eyes flicking toward me, filled with something I finally recognized, fear. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral, but inside my heart thundered. I didn't know what she put in that glass, but I knew one thing for certain. My daughter-in-law was dangerous. That night, as I walked home under the dim streetlights, my thoughts churned. What had she slipped into my drink? Why? And how long had she been plotting against me? The night after that dinner, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Melissa's hand hovering over my glass, her eyes flashing when I switched it. What had she planned for me? What did she expect to happen if I had drunk it? By sunrise, I had resolved one thing. I couldn't afford to dismiss it as imagination. At 76, I might have slowed down, but my instincts hadn't. And my instincts told me that Melissa wasn't just cruel. She was plotting something dangerous. The next afternoon, Daniel stopped by. He was cheerful as always, carrying a bag of groceries. "Melissa thought you could use some extra things," he said, setting them on the counter. "Milk, bread, a few vegetables." I forced a smile. That's thoughtful of her. Inside, though, I made a mental note. Melissa didn't buy me groceries out of kindness. This was about control, making me dependent, making me look feeble in Daniel's eyes. "Dad," Daniel continued, "you've seemed tired lately, forgetful. Melissa worries about you living alone. Maybe you should think about moving in with us. My heart clenched. And what about this house? Your mother's house? My life's work? He shrugged, clearly repeating Melissa's words. We could sell it. Use the money for something more practical. Practical. That word landed like a slap. My home wasn't a practical asset. It was where Margaret and I built our family. But Daniel didn't see it. Melissa had planted her seeds, and they were growing in his mind. I'll think about it. I lied, forcing my voice steady. When he left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Margaret's picture on the wall. They wanted all love. I whispered. The house, the money, even my dignity. But I won't give it to them. Over the next week, Melissa's behavior confirmed everything. At the next Sunday dinner, she made a point of moving my glass herself, smiling too sweetly. You wouldn't want to spill, Dad. Let me take care of it. When I asked about the kids' school, she waved me off, saying, You get confused with details, Dad. Don't worry about it. Even Daniel began repeating her lines. Dad, maybe Melissa should handle your bills. It's easier. Each comment went into my notebook. Each remark was evidence. But I didn't show my hand. I laughed at her jokes, let her help with my coat. Even nodded when she said she might stop by to check on me. If she thought I was blind, I'd let her believe it. One evening, Carol, my daughter, called. Her voice was soft but steady. Dad, what's going on with Daniel and Melissa? You've sounded off lately. I hesitated, then decided she deserved to know. I told her everything. The glass, the comments, the push to move me out of my house. There was silence, then a sharp gasp. Dad, that's not just rude. That's dangerous. You can't let them corner you. I don't intend to, I said, but I need to be smart. If Melissa wants to play games, I'll play too. Only difference is, I'll win. Carol's voice grew firm. I'll back you up, Dad. Whatever you need. Her words filled me with strength. For the first time since that night at dinner, I didn't feel alone. The next Sunday, I watched Melissa closely. She carried herself like a queen, confident, certain she had me fooled. She leaned close as she served dessert, her voice sweet. You're so lucky to have us, Dad. We'll make sure you're taken care of. I met her gaze and smiled faintly. I know, Melissa, I notice more than you think. Her face flickered for just a moment, her smile slipping before she caught herself. By the time the third Sunday dinner rolled around, I had sharpened my eyes and ears like a hawk. I played my part. The quiet old man who smiled at jokes, nodded at Melissa's chatter, and looked just forgetful enough to confirm her story. But inside, I was watching, recording every detail, every slip of her tongue. And then she made the mistake I had been waiting for. It happened after dessert. The kids had gone upstairs, and Daniel was fiddling with the television remote. Melissa poured herself another glass of wine and leaned across the table toward me. You know, Dad, she said sweetly, keeping up a house like yours must be exhausting. The yard, the repairs, the bills. Don't you ever get tired of it? I smiled faintly. Sometimes. Her eyes lit up. Exactly. And that's why Daniel, and I think it might be time for you to consider selling. You could move into a nice condo, smaller and easier. And of course, with the money from the sale, you'd never have to worry again. I studied her carefully. And who would handle the sale? She didn't hesitate. We would, of course. We'd make sure everything was taken care of. Her confidence was almost laughable. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. This wasn't about my well-being. It was about control, about the house Margaret and I had built together, about the money I had saved with sweat and callous hands. I leaned back, letting my expression soften, as though I were considering it. It's a big decision. I'll need some time. Of course, she said quickly, her smile wide and sharp. But don't wait too long. These things are easier when family helps. Family. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote it all down. Melissa suggested selling house. Wants a managed sale. Motive clear, money and control. For the first time, the fog lifted. It wasn't just suspicion. Melissa wanted my house, my independence, My legacy. I sat back in Margaret's rocking chair, staring at the walls we had painted together, the floorboards we had laid with our own hands. They'll never have this, I whispered, not while I breathed. The next morning, I went to see Thomas, my lawyer. He raised an eyebrow as I handed him the latest notes. She's getting bolder, I said. She's after the house now. Thomas sighed. I've seen this pattern before, Harold. They start with little jabs about forgetfulness, then push for help with finances, and finally aim to take control of property. If she's already talking about selling, she's moving fast. Then we move faster, I said. We reviewed the trust documents, tightening every loophole, ensuring that not a brick of this house or a dime of my savings could slip through to Daniel and Melissa. We named Carol as executor, added Henry as a witness to my competence, and left a clear paper trail of Melissa's manipulation. When I left Thomas's office, I felt a fire in my chest. I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was preparing for war. That Sunday, I tested her. Over dinner, I casually mentioned, I spoke with my lawyer this week. He suggested I get my affairs in order. Melissa's fork froze midair. Affairs? What do you mean? I smiled calmly, just making sure the house and money are protected. Her eyes flickered, panic flashing before she forced a laugh. Protected? From who? We're family, Dad. Exactly, I said softly, holding her gaze. And that's why I notice who treats me like family and who doesn't. Her face tightened, her smile brittle. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing something beneath the surface. I leaned back, finishing my meal in silence, but inside, I was smiling. The moment I left Thomas's office with the new trust papers tucked under my arm, I felt something shift inside me. For weeks, I'd been playing defense, smiling at Melissa's jabs, writing notes in my ledger, pretending not to notice her schemes. But now I had the upper hand. My house, my savings, even my modest pension were secured. If Melissa thought she could swoop in and take what Margaret and I had built, she was in for a rude awakening. But simply protecting myself wasn't enough. I wanted her exposed. I wanted Daniel to see her for who she truly was. For that, I'd need to be patient. The first part of my plan was simple. Let Melissa think she was winning. When she came by the following Thursday with a basket of muffins, smiling her sugar-coated smile, I greeted her warmly. Melissa, what a nice surprise. She handed me the basket and gave me that practiced, sweet daughter-in-law tone. I just worry about you, Dad. You shouldn't be cooking all the time. We want to take care of you. I nodded. You're right. Maybe I do need some help. Her eyes lit up. She didn't know it, but her expression betrayed her. To her, my words weren't about love. They were about opportunity. Of course, she said quickly. That's what family is for. The next Sunday, I set the stage. Carol and Henry were at the table along with Daniel and Melissa. Roast chicken again, a meal that Margaret had always made for Sunday dinners. I wanted the night to feel familiar, almost nostalgic. So Melissa would let her guard down. After the meal, as we sipped coffee, I sighed heavily. I said, this house does feel like a lot sometimes. Maybe Melissa is right. Maybe it's too much for me. Melissa's eyes widened. Daniel sat straighter. Carol shot me a warning glance, but I gave her the faintest shake of my head. Melissa leaned forward, her voice soft and eager. Dad, that's exactly what I've been saying. We could help you sell this place. You'd be free of all the hassle, and with the money, you'd be so comfortable. Daniel nodded. She's right, Dad. It could be easier for you. I folded my hands, keeping my face neutral. You'd help with all of that? The sale, the money, everything? Of course, Melissa said quickly. We'd handle every detail. Carol couldn't hold back anymore. Or take every dime, she snapped. Melissa's smile faltered, but only for a moment. That's not fair, Carol. We're only thinking of Dad. Henry cleared his throat. Funny, Melissa, because from where I sit, it sounds more like you're thinking of yourselves. Melissa's face flushed, but I held up my hand. No, let's not argue. I'll think about it. She smiled again, though the edges were brittle now. She thought she had me, and I let her believe it. That night, after they left, Carol confronted me. "Dad, why are you stringing her along? You've already secured the house. Why not tell them?" I sat back in Margaret's rocking chair, my notebook on my lap. "Because, Carol, if I end it now, she'll just spin another story. She'll convince Daniel I'm paranoid or that you manipulated me. No, she has to expose herself. She has to fall into her own trap. Only then will Daniel finally see the truth." Carol studied me, then nodded slowly. "So you're letting her talk herself into a corner." "Exactly," I said, writing down Melissa's word from dinner. "We'd handle every detail." I closed the notebook and whispered, more to myself than anyone else, "Let her think she's winning. When the mask finally slips, it won't just be me who sees it. It'll be everyone." Melissa's arrogance grew with every Sunday dinner. She was convinced she had me wrapped around her little finger, that the old man was finally ready to hand over his keys, his bank account, and his dignity. She didn't realize that every word, every eager glance toward Daniel, was another thread in the net I was weaving around her. I didn't have to trick Melissa into exposing herself. Her greed would do that for me. All I had to do was give her the chance. That week, I called Daniel and Melissa. "I've been thinking," I said, making my voice slow and weary. "Melissa might be right. The house is too much. Maybe it's time to sell." There was silence on the other end. Then Melissa's voice came fast, bright, and triumphant. "That's wonderful. Dad, you won't regret it. Daniel and I can take care of everything. When can we come by to go over the details?" "Sunday dinner," I said calmly. When I hung up, I almost laughed. She had taken the bait. Sunday came, and I made sure Carol and Henry were there. If this was going to work, I needed witnesses, people Daniel trusted, people who could see Melissa's mask crack in real time. Dinner was quiet at first. Melissa was practically glowing, her smile fixed and wide. After the plates were cleared, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "Dad," she said sweetly. I took the liberty of drafting a few things, just to make the process easier. I leaned forward, feigning confusion. "What's all this?" "Just some papers," she said quickly. "Nothing major. Preliminary forms, so we can begin the process of listing your house. If you sign, we can handle everything. Realtors, lawyers, bank transfers. You won't have to lift a finger." Carol's eyes widened. "You brought paperwork? Already?" Melissa ignored her, sliding the folder closer to me. "It's really just for your convenience, Dad. Daniel, and I want to take the stress off your shoulders." I opened the folder slowly, pretending to squint at the words. The first page said it all, power of attorney. I looked up. "Melissa, why does this say you and Daniel would have full authority over my assets?" Her smile wavered, then steadied. "That's just legal language, Dad. It's standard. You don't need to worry about the details." Carol slammed her hand on the table. "Standard? This gives you everything, his house, his accounts, all of it." Henry leaned back, arms folded. Looks less like helping and more like taking. Daniel looked startled, his face paling as he glanced at the documents. "Melissa, I didn't know," she cut him off sharply. "Don't be dramatic. It's just to simplify things. Everyone does this." I closed the folder carefully and slid it back across the table. My voice was calm, steady, but each word was sharp as a blade. "No, Melissa, everyone doesn't do this. Good families don't trick their elders into signing away their lives." For the first time, Melissa's mask cracked. Her smile disappeared, her eyes flashing with anger. "You're making a mistake, George. Do you really think Carol can handle all this? She has her own family. You'll only make things harder for everyone." Carol's chin lifted. "I'd rather work myself to the bone than watch you rob my father." Melissa's face burned red, her words spilling faster now. "You don't understand, Daniel. Your father is too old to handle all this. If he doesn't sign, we'll be stuck cleaning up the mess when he's gone." And there it was, the slip I'd been waiting for. She wasn't thinking about my well-being. She was thinking about inheritance, control, money. I sat back in my chair, my eyes locked on Daniel. "You hear her, son. This isn't about helping me. It's about taking everything the moment I'm out of the way. Daniel's face crumpled, torn between loyalty to his wife and the truth now glaring him in the face. Melissa's voice still echoed in my kitchen long after that Sunday dinner. If he doesn't sign, we'll be stuck cleaning up the mess when he's gone. Those words were the rope I had been waiting for, tight enough to hang her schemes in front of Daniel. But I knew this battle wasn't finished. Melissa wasn't the type to back down when exposed. She would lash out harder, and that's exactly what she did. 2 days later, a white envelope slid under my front door. Inside was a formal notice. Melissa had filed for guardianship, claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my affairs. She listed my forgetfulness, my reckless spending on family trips, and even suggested I had confused details at dinners. I laughed bitterly. She was still using the Hawaii trip against me, twisting it into evidence. The humiliation at the airport had been her doing all along, and now she was weaponizing it. I called Thomas immediately. "She's gone too far," I said, my hand shaking but my voice steady. Thomas sighed. "I expected this. But Harold, we're ready. The trust is ironclad. You've kept notes. You've got Carol and Henry as witnesses. If she wants to fight in court, she'll lose." "Good," I said. "Then let's end it once and for all." The court date came faster than I expected. I walked into the small courtroom with Carol by my side and Henry sitting right behind us. My notebook was tucked under my arm like a weapon. Melissa sat across from us, dressed in her finest suit, her face a mask of calm. Daniel sat beside her, pale and restless. The judge began. "Mrs. Collins, you filed for guardianship of your father-in-law. Please explain." Melissa's voice was syrupy. "Your Honor, Edward is 76. He forgets things daily, spends recklessly, and endangers himself. He even wasted $20,000 on a vacation he couldn't attend because he couldn't manage the details. He needs supervision for his safety and for the family's." I clenched my fists under the table, but stayed quiet. Then Thomas stood. "Your Honor, none of this is true, and we can prove it." Piece by piece, he laid out the evidence. First, my notebook, filled with exact quotes of Melissa's manipulations, her jabs about my memory, her insistence that I couldn't handle my own life. Then the receipts from Hawaii, proving I had booked everything for the family, only to be abandoned. Carol testified next, her voice steady. Melissa suggested Dad should sell his home and let her handle everything. She brought power of attorney papers disguised as convenience forms. Dad didn't ask for this. She forced it on him. Henry added his account, describing how Melissa had once tried to trick me into signing documents. It was fraud, plain and simple, he told the judge. Finally, Thomas presented the trust documents, signed, sealed, and naming Carol as executor. Mr. Collins has acted responsibly. Thomas said firmly he has safeguarded his assets. This guardianship petition is nothing more than a power grab. The judge flipped through the papers, his expression unreadable. Then he looked directly at Melissa. "Mrs. Collins, this is not evidence of incompetence. It's evidence of exploitation. If you continue down this path, I'll be forced to recommend a fraud investigation." Melissa's face drained of color. Daniel's shoulders slumped, his eyes closing as if the truth had finally broken through. The judge dismissed the petition immediately. As we walked out of the courtroom, Melissa hissed at me under her breath, her voice shaking with rage. "This isn't the end, Edward." I stopped, turned to her, and spoke so softly only she could hear. "It is for you, because now Daniel knows." Her eyes widened, but she said nothing. Back home, I sat in Margaret's rocking chair, the sunlight warm across my face. Carol poured me tea, her voice gentle. "Dad, you did it. You ended it." I nodded slowly. "No, Carol. She ended it herself. I just held up the mirror." The courtroom victory felt good, but it wasn't enough. Melissa had been exposed, her lies shattered in front of a judge. But one person still lived in denial, my son, Daniel. I could see it in his eyes when we walked out of the courthouse. He wasn't angry, not exactly. He looked hollow, ashamed, but still clinging to the hope that Melissa wasn't as bad as she seemed. And that hurt worse than anything Melissa had ever done, because betrayal from a stranger is survivable. But betrayal from your own blood? That cuts deep. A week later, I called Daniel and asked him to come by. Alone. He hesitated but agreed. When he arrived, his shoulders sagged like the weight of the world was pressing him down. He stepped inside my house, the house his mother and I built, and stood awkwardly in the living room. "Dad," he said softly, "I don't know where to start." "Then start with the truth." I told him. "Why did you stand by her? Why did you let Melissa try to destroy me?" His eyes filled with guilt. "I thought she loved me. I thought she was protecting us. Every time I questioned her, she'd tell me I was choosing between her and you. And his voice cracked. I chose wrong. I studied him carefully. For years, I'd shouldered disappointment in silence, but this was different. He needed to hear the truth plain and unvarnished. "Daniel," I said firmly, "your mother raised you better. We taught you that family means loyalty, respect, honesty. Yet when Melissa mocked me, you laughed along. When she tried to take my house, you looked away. When she left me humiliated at that airport, you walked right beside her." His face crumpled. "I'm sorry, Dad. I should have stopped her. I should have protected you." I leaned forward. "Sorry won't fix what's broken. You let your wife try to bury me. And you let her convince you I was weak, incompetent. Do you know how that felt? To hear my own son agree with her lies?" Tears welled in his eyes. "I was a coward. I didn't want to lose her." "And now you've lost both," I said coldly. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. Then I stood and walked to my desk. From the drawer, I pulled out the folder Thomas had prepared. The trust, the will, everything. I laid it on the table. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "The trust." "That's right. Carol is executor. She will handle everything when I'm gone. You aren't in it, Daniel. Not a dime, not a brick of this house." His hands trembled. "Dad, please." I raised a hand to stop him. "No, this isn't punishment. It's protection. Melissa showed me exactly what she wanted, and you showed me you couldn't stand against her. I won't let either of you ruin what your mother and I built." His tears finally spilled over. "Then what do I have left?" I softened my voice, though steel still lined it. "You have a choice. You can drown in regret, or you can rebuild. You can fight to earn back respect. Not through money, not through inheritance, but by being the man your mother believed you could be." Daniel buried his face in his hands. "I want that. I want to make it right." For the first time in months, I believed him. When he finally left that night, I sat back in Margaret's rocking chair, staring at her picture. "Love," I whispered. "Our boy finally saw the truth. He's broken, but maybe he can heal. And as for Melissa, she's finished." The house felt lighter, freer, like the weight of betrayal had finally begun to lift. The days after my confrontation with Daniel felt strange, like the storm had finally passed, but the air was still heavy with what it left behind. For the first time in months, my house was quiet, peaceful, free of Melissa's shadow. Yet I knew closure wasn't complete until I secured my legacy and put this chapter behind me for good. Melissa vanished from my life after the court case. No surprise visits, no phone calls, not even her syrupy fake kindness. Word around town was she'd been humiliated. People whispered about the guardianship petition that backfired, about how she tried to rob her own father-in-law. Her reputation was shredded, and she hated it. But instead of fighting back, she slithered into silence. Daniel, on the other hand, returned more often. At first, he came with guilt in his eyes, sitting quietly in the living room as though he wasn't sure he belonged there anymore. Over time, he started helping with the yard, fixing the old fence, even repainting Margaret's garden bench. Each action was a wordless apology. One evening, as we packed away tools in the shed, he finally spoke. "Dad, Melissa's gone. She left me, said I ruined her life." I set the hammer down carefully. "She ruined her own life, Daniel. She just tried to take mine down with her." His eyes glistened in the fading light. "I don't know if I can ever earn your forgiveness." "You don't need forgiveness to start over," I said quietly. "You need honesty. You need to be the man your mother raised you to be." He nodded slowly. as though carrying those words like a stone in his chest. A week later, Carol and I met with Thomas again. We finalized the trust. Every asset, every account, every part of my estate protected under her name. Henry was added as a witness, leaving no room for Melissa or anyone else to challenge it. When the papers were signed, Thomas looked at me with approval. "It's done, Harold. Your legacy is safe. Your family is safe." For the first time in years, I felt a peace I couldn't explain. That Sunday, I invited both Daniel and Carol for dinner. It wasn't about confrontation anymore. It was about healing. I roasted chicken, just the way Margaret used to, and set the table with her china. When we sat down, I pulled out the folder one last time. "Carol," I said, "you're executor of the trust. Everything your mother and I built, everything we saved, it's in your hands. Protect it. Protect our family's name." Her eyes filled with tears. "I promise, Dad." Then I turned to Daniel. His face was pale, but he didn't look away this time. "Daniel," I said firmly, "you're not in this trust. Not because I don't love you, but because you let someone else's greed blind you. I can't risk Margaret's legacy being tied to that. Do you understand?" His voice cracked. "Yes, Dad, I understand. But that doesn't mean you're cut off from me. You're still my son. You still have the chance to be the man your mother believed in. That's worth more than any inheritance." For a moment, the room was silent. Then Daniel whispered, "Thank you." After dinner, we sat on the porch as the sun dipped below the horizon. Carol laughed with Henry inside, while Daniel and I rocked side by side. I looked at the garden, the roses Margaret planted so long ago, and felt her presence in the quiet. "Love," I whispered under my breath. "It's finished. Melissa's gone. The house, the savings, the dignity, we kept it all. And maybe, just maybe, we got our son back, too." For the first time in a long while, I felt whole.